and let us all do we can to build a better future.
I said I'd talk about this on yesterday's show again. The Democratic Socialists of America scrambles to defend itself as, again, more Americans and hopefully more progressives are waking up to the fact that DSA and Justice Democrats, well, they were always designed to fail from the very beginning. Now, when I had Jerry on the show, we were talking back and forth about, well, what really happened? What went wrong? I want to give a shout out to Compton J, who managed to find these wonderful gems of one of the Justice Democrats founder, Kyle Kulinski, on, well, what the Justice Democrats were supposed to be. And at the end of the day, when you have to call the Justice Democrats a bad ally, what is the difference between an ally, a bad ally, and an enemy? I want to share this with all of you because I'm still speechless in the fact that this conversation was actually had. And it just makes no sense. Now, mind you, again, this is before Kyle decided to blonde his hair to look like Eminem, but here you go.
Yeah, I don't like the hashtag fraud squad thing. Here's my problem with that. Again, it goes directly to the level of you're my enemy and your intentions are bad. I'm a big believer in, I know who my enemies are. My enemies are, yes, the corporate Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Democratic leadership. They're my enemy. I'm more than happy to say that.
Yeah.
The Justice Democrats are not my enemy. They're my bad ally. They're my ally.
And when you say something like that, what pops up into my mind is this. Okay, bad ally. That means I can't trust you. That means I know that you'll sell me out. That means you will always lie to cover yourself. A bad ally. A bad ally. A bad ally is somebody who says, yeah, I promise I'll pick you up so you can get to your job on time. Yeah, okay. A bad ally is someone who says they'll be there for you, but they never show up. A bad ally is somebody who goes behind your back, steals your property, anything that means something of value to you. A bad ally is an enemy. They're not a friend. If they were a friend, if the Justice Democrats, the progressives in Washington, D.C. were our friends, don't you think they'd be, I don't know, fighting a little bit harder instead of giving the Biden-Harris administration an A+? To quote AOC, he's been exceeding expectations. A bad ally. A bad ally. You know, audience, it's pretty pathetic knowing that Cenk and Kyle, who created Justice Democrats, never had any kind of way to use their positions of power to make sure that people like AOC and the squad will be held accountable. Because let's face it, AOC and the squad are not afraid of Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, and our revolution. AOC and all of the Congressional Progressive Caucus are marching toe-to-toe, lock in step with the Democratic establishment. They're there. They're not a bad ally. They're part of the problem.
Who needs
They're
to
just fucking up. They're just fucking up. They're not
That's
like
exactly right.
villains forever.
Yeah, I agree.
That's exactly
I
right.
agree. Yeah.
And so that's why the fraud squad thing I did not agree with, because
And again, fraud squad, you do have to agree with it because they're frauds. They're not following through with any of their promises. In 2021, there was a chance to really fight for Medicare for all. And what did the 15 congressmen and women, especially the members of the squad who were part of Justice Democrats, what did they do? They dismissed it. They told people to watch their tone, to watch their words because it was violence. Obviously, it's quite clear that Cenk and Kyle never had any kind of follow through with the Justice Democrats. And mind you, I'll get to DSA in just a little bit. But it's so pathetic knowing that there was never a chance for there to be any kind of real power. It was set up for failure. Do you see AOC and the squad going on TYT or Secular Talk or Majority Report? No, they never will. Why? Because they're of no use to them anymore. They're not afraid of them anymore. There's no incentive for people like AOC to go on TYT or Majority Report or Secular Talk. And if they do, it's a sign of desperation. Because where do you see the squad members go? Mostly on corporate media.
second you go to the level of I'm going to attack these people's intentions, you lose me because you're just wrong. So here's how you know there's a difference between Pelosi and any member of the Justice Democrats. When the day comes where there is a vote on Medicare for all, every single Justice Democrat will vote for it. Nancy Pelosi will vote against it. If you're willing to overlook that nuance and that distinction, you're just an idiot. You're just dumb.
I mean, also, as disappointed as I can sometimes be with like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is also a sitting congressperson who's not taking like corporate donors. Like,
no, again, just because she's not taking corporate money, look at her voting record. It's just as corporate as any other neoliberal Democrat in Washington, D.C. What I'm saying isn't anything new. It shouldn't come as a shock to all of you. You've seen so many other independent media outlets report the same damn thing. AOC and the squad have done nothing. And never forget, AOC voted present for that Iron Dome. You know, when Nancy Pelosi was wagging her finger, trying to make her, cry, or AOC was crying, turning her no vote to a present. Hey, is there ever going to be a chance for, I don't know, any kind of progressive policy issue that the squad's going to fight for? No, they never followed through. Medicare for all, women's reproductive rights, student debt forgiveness. The list goes on and on and on and on. Well, just because AOC doesn't take corporate money, fine, but she sure votes like a corporate Democrat.
That's it. And again,
and that alone is so huge and such a seismic difference. You know what I mean?
It's a seismic difference, and
as much as people want to not acknowledge that and just hate because it's you want to be loud online, but like
we're trying to own her on that exact point. People were trying to own her, and they posted her, where her donors were from, and a lot of the money came from Amazon. Come to find out, every single penny of that was from Amazon workers.
Yeah, they did that with Bernie too, right? Yeah, they did.
Yeah, that's the same dirty trick they used on Bernie. But the sad thing is, I think there were some people who were earnestly thinking that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was taking like big Amazon money from Jeff Bezos or something.
Yes, but here's the thing, though, and something that's, again, a lot of the vote blue, no matter who crowd, Justice Democrats, DSA, they have to come to terms with the fact that AOC and the squad, they sold out the railroad workers. Now, again, to all the people who voted for the Democrats during the midterm election cycle, I guess you believe the propaganda that the Democrats were feeding you that, they were going to fight for women's reproductive rights. They were going to fight for student debt forgiveness. They were going to do something about climate change. They were going to do all these progressive issues and stand with union workers, the working class. But they didn't. They failed. I want to pull up this statement from DSA. Something all of you should see. And it's just a sign, just right here. We are proud of DSA member Representative Rashida Tlaib's vote against the TA. And for 6 days. Any vote by Congress to impose a bad contract on workers' sides with the boss and contradicts democratic socialist values. We disagree and are disappointed with the decision of DSA member Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, to needlessly vote to enforce the TA. The members are the union, and the majority of members voted to reject the TA. Socialist elects must stand with unions. They must stand with the unions. All that other good stuff. For those of you who don't know, TA, again, is the tentative agreement where basically Congress has forced these railroad workers to go back to work. We disagree and are disappointed with the decision of DSA members Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Cori Bush to needlessly vote for a tentative agreement. That's that. And they didn't do it. Except for one member. But hang on, folks. There's more. Article from the World Socialist website. Democrat Socialists of America scrambles to defend its role in imposing the rail contract. The Democratic Socialists of America has been thrown into a crisis after 3 of its 4 members in the House of Representatives voted to impose a contract on the railroad workers, blocking a national rail strike. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamal Bowman, and Cori Bush all voted in favor of the bill, with only Rashida Tlaib voting against it. Mind you, the other members of the squad and other members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus also voted in favor of the bill. Together with Bernie Sanders in the Senate, the DSA-backed caucus introduced a separate resolution to give railroad workers 7 days paid sick leave. This was purely political theater to provide the Democrats with political cover. It had no chance of passing the Senate over opposition from Republicans and even right-wing Democrats such as Joe Manchin. And it was crafted in such a way that its passage in the House, but rejection in the Senate, would not even delay the signing of the anti-strike law. In the Senate, Sanders cast a meaningless no vote against imposing the contract, but his support was critical for the expedient procedure through which it was passed, because under Senate rules it requires the support of all 100 senators. The role of the DSA shocked and angered many of its own members, which includes sincere but politically inexperienced youths who joined in the belief that DSA was generally a socialist organization. Isn't that rather shocking, folks? Now, this organization, similar to Justice Democrats, DSA, they really don't have any kind of power or influence over somebody like AOC. Because at the end of the day, is there anything for AOC or Jamal Bowman or Cori Bush to be worried about from the DSA? The answer is no. I mentioned this on yesterday's show. DSA is able to fundraise and get more volunteers with high-profile faces attached to their brand. AOC is a high-profile face. AOC is a person who, again, is able to bring in huge amount of crowds and people who believe in the idea that somehow things can change. Things can happen in Washington, D.C. I also want to acknowledge a few other things here, too. And this, again, should really concern all of you. Anyone who donated to Justice Democrats or DSA, especially with the aftermath of the 2016 election. Sorry, folks. Well, they were always set up to fail. They were always set up to be co-opted by the Democratic Party. These organizations never had the idea, or either that, perhaps they already knew just how much of a cesspool Washington, D.C. truly was. So they decided just to attach themselves to somebody who can gain attention to them. There was never the attempt to think about the people who believed in the message of progressive policies. You can't reform the Democratic Party. You can't reform the Democratic Party. It's impossible to reform that institution. Look how quick AOC was able to, again, bow to the throne of Mama Bear Nancy Pelosi. But I'll give Kyle and Cenk credit for this. Originally, the Justice Democrats were supposed to be the left of the Tea Party. I want to pull up this other video here. Shout out again to Compton J, who was able to find this wonderful gem. It really just shows us how much, or how great things have changed in such a short amount of time. Let's go ahead and play this video here about what the Justice Democrats were supposed to be.
The original name, the working name for Justice Democrats when I co-founded it, was the Left Tea Party. Now, we eventually settled on Justice Democrats, but the actual idea in its genesis was, let's create a Left Tea Party.
And what did this Left Tea Party do to Kyle and Cenk? As soon as Cenk's, questionable articles were, shared amongst the Justice Democratic community, they were quick to cancel. Now, to be fair, when that happened, I was against it. I thought it was a stupid move by Justice Democrats. But the board at Justice Democrats decided to remove Cenk Uygur. Kyle Kulinski followed in suit. And Justice Democrats, I guess, became its own kind of animal. And since then, let's look at what Justice Democrats have accomplished, especially with their candidates in Washington, D.C. We got no fucking Medicare for all. We got no student debt forgiveness. Nothing for our infrastructure. Nothing for working class citizens. And what about women's reproductive rights? That's all gone. That's not going to happen. The Democratic Party will never fight for those issues. They will never make sure that those bills come to pass. They will never codify anything that would help out you and your family. They'll only tweet things out. So will there be any kind of accountability for Justice Democrats or brand new Congress? The answer is no. There won't be. I also want to pull up something else that caught my attention as well. Now, again, it could be a nothing burger, but it kind of relates to the story somewhat. And I want to give a special shout out to the wonderful Fair and Balanced who actually sent this to me. And so while I am pulling up this article, because, hey, this is live, it's kind of breaking news already, I think we need to remember people had hope. People had hope in these politicians. People had hope that there would be change. But the thing is, you have to remember that these politicians, they're people too. And they're designed to fail. They're designed to be flawed. Okay? All these politicians should not be worshipped as heroes. They shouldn't be. I want to pull up this article here for all of our viewing audience as well. And while, again, this is still breaking, House Ethics Committee opens investigation into Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The hits keep coming to the Democratic Party. The hits keep coming to this establishment of the Justice Democrats and DSA. House Ethics Committee has launched an investigation into New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Few details were revealed in the news release from the committee below. The acting chairwoman and acting ranking member of the Committee of Ethics have jointly decided to extend the matter regarding Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which was transmitted to the committee by the Office of Congressional Ethics on June 23rd, 2022. The committee notes that the mere fact of a referral or an extension and mandatory disclosure of such an extension and the name of the subject of the matter does not itself indicate that any violation has occurred or reflect any judgment on behalf of the committee. But it's not a good look. It's not a good look for these politicians. Not a single one of them. Never, ever take these politicians seriously. They're designed to lie to you. That's their whole operation. That's how they work. And I'm so sorry to all the people that did believe in the Justice Democrats or DSA. Look at how often AOC and the progressives and Bernie Sanders went to bat for Joe Biden, but dismissing the fact that he is the root cause and one of the many designers of this neoliberal nightmare that we're in. That's the world we're in right now. We truly do live in a clown world where the people who we thought were going to fight for us ended up stabbing us in the back. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish things were different. I wish AOC and the 15 congressmen and women on the Force the Vote petition actually forced Nancy to put Medicare for All on the House floor for a vote. I wish that AOC and the squad and all of the Congressional Progressive Caucus stood in solidarity with us for the March for Medicare for All. And I wish AOC and the squad and the Congressional Progressive Caucus actually had the soul and the heart to stand in solidarity with the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting and fight for the $15 minimum wage increase and fight for women's reproductive rights and fight for student debt forgiveness and actually stand up to the Biden-Harris administration. But because there was no real foresight into what would happen if somebody from DSA or Justice Democrats would win, people assumed, okay, let's go to brunch. Let's enjoy our mimosas. We got one of our own in Washington, D.C. But Washington, D.C. is a swamp bubble. And it will poison you. And sadly, nothing can be done at the federal level. This is why we got to fight for ballot initiatives. And this is why we have to start doing things at the state level. Because no one from Washington, D.C. is going to fight for us. And Justice Democrats and DSA, well, I don't know how you're going to earn people's trust again. But good luck, because reforming the Democratic Party or thinking that you have a seat at the table, please do me a favor and take off your sunglasses. Because you look like you've been punched in the eye way too many times.